There is someone in your life right now who has been playing a game you didn't even know existed. They've studied your fears, your insecurities, your desires and fear, using that knowledge to control you like a puppet master, pulling invisible strings. You think you're making your own decisions, but you're not. You think you're in a normal relationship or friendship, but you're actually trapped in someone else's carefully constructed web of manipulation. The most terrifying part? By the time most people realize what's happening, their reputation, relationships, and sometimes their entire life has already been poisoned. But today, we're going to solve this problem using the cold, ruthless wisdom of history's most strategic mind, Niccolo Machiavelli. You're going to learn not just how to escape the trap, but how to turn it back on the person who set it. Most people, when they discover they are being manipulated, make one of two fatal mistakes. They either explode in righteous anger, giving the manipulator exactly the emotional reaction they can use. Against them, they retreat in confused silence, leaving the manipulator free to continue their game. Both responses are losing moves, and both are exactly what the manipulator expects. Today, we're not talking about appealing to someone's conscience or hoping they'll change. We're talking about something far more precise and permanent, using Machiavellian strategy to turn their own trap into the instrument of their downfall. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about refusing to remain prey in a world where wolves disguise themselves as shepherds. Right now, someone in your life believes they are playing chess while you are playing checkers. They think they understand the game better than you do, and honestly, they probably do. But here is what Machiavelli would tell you about that situation. The moment you realize you are in the wrong game is the moment you can start winning the right one. Listen carefully, because this is where everything changes. You are about to stop being prey and start thinking like a prince. Most people, when they begin to suspect they are being manipulated, make one catastrophic mistake. They react with their emotions instead of their intellect. They get angry, they get hurt, they demand explanations, they try to appeal to the manipulator's conscience. Machiavelli would tell you that every single one of these responses is exactly what your enemy wants from you. Your emotional reaction is not a sign of your humanity. It is proof of their control. From this moment forward, you must become a physician studying a disease. You do not get angry at cancer for being destructive. You do not plead with a virus to stop spreading. You observe its behavior, you understand its mechanism, and you develop a cure. The person manipulating you is not your friend having a bad day. They are not misunderstood. They are not going through a difficult time. They are a strategic operator, and you must study them with the same cold precision that Machiavelli reserved for analyzing rival princes who might one day need to be conquered. Here is the first question that will change everything. Stop asking why they are doing this to you. Start asking what they want. Strip away their charm, their concern, their carefully constructed personality, and look only at the results of their actions. Where do they always end up when the dust settles? Do they gain your resources, your time, your reputation, your relationships? Do they isolate you from people who might offer different perspectives? Do they position themselves as your only reliable ally while everyone else becomes suspect? Every master manipulator operates from a specific objective, and once you identify that objective, every tactic becomes predictable. The subtle insult disguised as a joke stops feeling random and starts revealing itself as a confidence-breaking tool. The way they share other people's secrets with you stops appearing like intimacy and starts showing its true nature as a loyalty test. The confusion they create when you try to address problems directly stops feeling like misunderstanding and starts looking exactly like what it is: a defense mechanism designed to protect their operation from exposure. But here is their fatal weakness, and Machiavelli understood this about all people who seek power over others. They become arrogant. They believe they are smarter than you, more sophisticated than you, always 10 steps ahead of you. This arrogance makes them careless. They start to show off. They begin to enjoy the game too much. They leave evidence because they cannot resist demonstrating their cleverness, even if only to themselves. Your task is not to confront them. Not yet. Your task is to document everything while showing nothing on your face that suggests you understand what is happening. When they contradict themselves, You simply appear confused, not suspicious. When their stories do not match what they told others, you ask innocent, clarifying questions. When they make promises they do not keep, you quietly note the pattern without demanding accountability. You are gathering intelligence now, not seeking justice. You are mapping their battlefield while they believe you are still wandering around lost in the fog. Every conversation becomes data. Every story becomes evidence. Every manipulation becomes a documented case study in their methods and objectives. The more you observe through this strategic lens, the more you will see that what once felt like random cruelty is actually systematic operation. That perfectly timed criticism right before your important presentation, that sudden memory loss about promises made to you, combined with perfect recall of your mistakes. That wave of affection immediately after they push too far, keeping you off balance between gratitude and resentment. You must also observe your own reactions in their presence. Does your body tense when they enter the room? Do you choose words more carefully, feel pressure to prove yourself, automatically move into defensive positions? These physical responses are intelligence. They tell you that on some level, you already know you are not safe with this person. So you begin your transformation. Outwardly, nothing changes. You smile when appropriate. You respond normally. You maintain your usual patterns. Inwardly, you have shifted roles completely. You are no longer the subject being managed. You are the ruler collecting intelligence on a potentially dangerous advisor. You are not paranoid. You are precise. You are not overthinking. You are finally thinking with the cold clarity that Machiavelli reserved for those who intended to survive among wolves. Disguised as shepherds, you now see the game. You understand their objective. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to confront them right now, to expose them, to let them know you are no longer their puppet. This urge is natural, and it is also the most dangerous trap you can fall into at this exact moment. Machiavelli wrote that the fox cannot defend against wolves, but it can recognize traps. The moment you reveal what you know, you surrender your greatest advantage. You trigger their defense mechanisms. They will adapt, shift tactics, and begin working on your credibility before you can present your case. They will paint you as unstable, paranoid, or vindictive to everyone around you. Now you are not just fighting their manipulation. You are fighting the narrative they built about you. This is why feigned compliance is not weakness. It is the most sophisticated form of strategic intelligence. You are not pretending to be fooled because you are afraid. You are pretending to be fooled because you are building something they cannot see coming. Consider what happens when a manipulator believes their tactics still work. They continue using them. Every time they manipulate someone who is now consciously documenting it, they build the case against themselves. They provide the evidence. They create the timeline. They demonstrate the pattern while you simply observe and record. Here is how this plays out. When they deliver their carefully constructed insults disguised as concern, you do not flinch. You respond warmly. You thank them for caring. Inside, you note the exact words, timing, audience present, and what they gained. When they tell you a distorted version of events, you listen with apparent interest. You ask questions that seem curious but actually get them to commit further to stories you can later disprove. You must save messages and communications. Note dates, times, exact words in conversations. Compare what they tell you against what they tell others through innocent questions, not suspicious questions. Simple, reasonable questions that reveal contradictions. When their story-to-person A conflicts with their story-to-person B, you do not announce this. You add it to your growing evidence collection. This process serves two purposes. You are gathering ammunition for the future, but you are also reclaiming your own mind. They have spent considerable effort making you question your perceptions, memory, and judgment. Every piece of evidence you collect proves to yourself that your instincts were correct, that what you sensed was real. You are infiltrating their operation by playing the exact role they cast you in. The manipulator relies on predictable feedback. They push a button, you react. By providing expected reactions, you keep them comfortable. They will not change strategy because they believe it is flawless. This complacency becomes the trap you are setting. Their entire worldview assumes people are easily read and directed. They view themselves as the only conscious player among sleepwalkers. Feigned compliance feeds this delusion. As their confidence grows, caution diminishes. They take bigger risks, make bolder claims, attempt more audacious power grabs. They overextend because they believe there is no resistance. You are not performing compliance out of fear anymore. You perform it out of strategy. There is quiet confidence in knowing what you know while appearing not to know it. You must sever emotional attachment to their validation. If they think you are weak, let them. Their assessment is no longer a reflection of your worth. It is simply a variable in your strategic calculation. You are hiding your awakening the way a ruler hides an army in the hills. They cannot attack what they cannot see. You become a mirror reflecting exactly what they wish to see, completely unaware that you have hollowed out the ground beneath their feet, packed with explosives of their own contradictions, waiting for the moment you choose to light the match. You have studied them with surgical precision. You have worn the mask of compliance so perfectly that they believe victory is still within their grasp. Now comes the move that separates true strategic thinking from mere survival instinct. You are not going to fight their manipulation. You are going to redirect it with such calculated precision that their own weapons become the instruments of their destruction. Machiavelli understood something about warfare that most people never grasp. The most devastating defeats do not come from opposing force with force. They come when you take your enemy's momentum and redirect it so perfectly that they destroy themselves with their own energy. This is not revenge, which is emotional and imprecise. This is architecture. You are redesigning the structure of their operation so that every move they make pushes them deeper into a trap they built with their own hands. Let us start with their most trusted weapon, flattery. They use praise like a precision instrument, deploying it to create false intimacy and emotional dependency. When they flatter you now, you accept it with calm grace, then immediately redirect the focus back onto their methodology. You look them directly in the eye and ask gentle questions about how they manage to read people so accurately. You encourage them to explain their own brilliance. Manipulators possess massive egos, and when you feed that ego strategically, they cannot resist oversharing. They begin bragging about how easily they manage situations, how they pull strings, how they understand human nature. By simply acting as an impressed audience, you trick them into confessing their manipulative techniques out loud, often in front of the very people they have been using those techniques on. Next, we eliminate their most powerful shield, ambiguity. They thrive in gray areas, making statements that can mean multiple things, giving instructions that can be interpreted different ways so that blame always lands on you. Your reversal here is relentless clarity. You do not get angry when they are vague. Instead, you become someone who simply wants to be incredibly precise and helpful. When they give confusing directives or backhanded compliments, you pause and ask them to clarify in excruciating detail. You summarize their contradictory statements in writing. You send messages confirming your understanding of their exact wishes, laying out their absurd demands in plain text. When they realize their shadows are being dragged into harsh documentation, they panic. They try retreating into fog, but you politely keep them pinned under the spotlight of forced accountability. Now we address their poison, gossip and triangulation. They control narrative by telling different stories to different people, ensuring no one compares notes. They tell you someone else is angry with you, while telling that person you are causing problems. The reversal here is devastatingly simple, but requires nerves of steel. You break the triangle. When they share concerning gossip about a third party, you do not defend yourself or get upset. You thank them for the information, then immediately approach that person directly. You say calmly that you heard about a potential issue and want to clear the air. You do not accuse the manipulator. You simply state what was said. The moment you and the third party realize the stories do not match, their web of isolation dissolves instantly. Their divide and conquer strategy becomes the exact catalyst that unites their victims against them. Finally, their weapon of guilt. They have studied your moral compass so they can use your goodness against you. They play victim flawlessly, twisting situations so you apologize for their behavior. To reverse this, you must create an emotional vacuum. When they launch into guilt trips, you do not defend your actions or apologize. You simply agree with their stated emotion without accepting blame. You tell them it must be very difficult to feel that way. You validate their frustration without taking ownership of it. You are letting their guilt fall to the floor between you instead of catching and carrying it. The manipulator becomes increasingly desperate, escalating their victimhood to ridiculous extremes because their primary control mechanism has suddenly stopped functioning. Here is what makes reversals so devastatingly effective. They built their entire operation assuming targets are isolated, uninformed, and emotionally reactive. Your reversals attack all three assumptions simultaneously. People are no longer isolated because you build direct connections. They are no longer uninformed because contradictions become visible. Nobody reacts emotionally because you engineer everything with calm precision. They begin feeling something unfamiliar. Their tactics produce unexpected results. Their managed relationships develop independent perspectives. They sense resistance but cannot locate its source because you never confronted them directly, never showed anger, never gave them the emotional reaction they know how to exploit. You have completed the work that separates true strategists from mere survivors. You observed without betraying awareness. You complied without surrendering your mind. You reversed their weapons with surgical precision. Now arrives the moment Machiavelli reserved for princes who understood that the greatest victories require not the loudest battles, but the most perfect positioning. This is not about confrontation. This is not about revenge. This is about the systematic collapse of everything they built, engineered so precisely that they destroy themselves while you remain untouchable. Most people, when they reach this point, make the fatal error of seeking dramatic satisfaction. They imagine themselves delivering the perfect speech, listing every grievance, watching the manipulator crumble in shame and acknowledgement. Machiavelli would call this the fantasy of amateurs. When you confront a master manipulator emotionally, you step back into their arena. You provide the chaos they thrive in, the drama they can twist, the emotional reaction they can use as evidence of your instability. True power operates in silence. True victory is the quiet rearrangement of reality until one day everyone simply realizes the manipulator no longer matters. Your calculated strike dismantles three foundational pillars that support their entire operation. The first pillar is their reputation for reliability and insight. Everything they have constructed depends on people believing their version of events over contradictory evidence. They spent months, perhaps years, subtly undermining your credibility while building their own. Your strike against this pillar is not accusation or argument. It is the methodical presentation of documented reality. When discrepancies arise in group settings, you calmly produce the email, the message, the written record that proves their inconsistency. You express no anger, make no accusations. You simply state that you must have misunderstood something, then let the contradiction speak with devastating clarity. Their credibility does not die from one dramatic blow. It bleeds out through 1,000 tiny cuts of undeniable evidence, each one removing another layer of the trust they need to operate. The second pillar you must obliterate completely is their control over information flow. Manipulators derive enormous power from positioning themselves as essential middlemen in every important relationship. They isolate targets so all reality must be filtered through their interpretation. Your strike here bypasses them entirely. You build direct, independent connections with every person they tried to keep you separated from. You reach out to colleagues they warned you about, friends they claimed were talking behind your back, family members they suggested were losing faith in you. When you create these direct communication channels, their carefully constructed narratives begin cross-pollinating. The lies they told person A about person B suddenly collide with actual conversations. You do not orchestrate their exposure. You simply open doors they fought desperately to keep closed. And the natural exchange of unfiltered truth does the destructive work automatically. The third and most crucial pillar is your own vulnerability to their influence. A manipulator can only control what you need from them. If you depend on their validation, approval, connections, or emotional support, they hold the strings that move your decisions. Your strike here requires ruthless self-examination and systematic independence. You identify every point of leverage they possess over you, then methodically eliminate each one. You find new mentors, build alternative support systems, develop independent sources of the resources they controlled. You detach your self-worth from their assessment. You become a fortress of self-reliance where their familiar pressure points no longer connect to functional machinery. When they reach for the levers they have pulled successfully for months or years, they find those levers have been quietly disconnected. As these three pillars crumble simultaneously, you will witness something both fascinating and inevitable. The manipulator will panic. They are accustomed to controlling outcomes, and the sudden realization that their influence is evaporating sends them into desperate escalation. They push harder, make more aggressive moves, attempt dramatic guilt trips or sudden attacks. This escalation is not evidence that you are losing. This escalation is their death rattle. It is the moment they finally expose their true nature to everyone who previously gave them the benefit of the doubt. Their desperation makes them clumsy, their clumsiness makes them visible, and their visibility destroys the plausible deniability they need to survive. Your role during this final phase is to remain absolutely motionless. You do not gloat when they stumble. You do not retaliate when they attack. You do not over-explain your position to people who are now questioning them independently. You simply maintain perfect consistency and calm while they perform increasingly frantic attempts to regain control of a situation that has already shifted permanently beneath their feet. You watch them burn their own bridges, alienate their own allies, and reveal their manipulative nature to people who were previously blind to it. This is the Machiavellian victory in its purest expression. You did not become cruel to defeat cruelty. You did not descend to their level to win. You became so strategically precise, so methodically patient, so perfectly prepared that their own psychology became the weapon of their destruction. They chose you because they believed you were predictable and manageable. They invested everything in the assumption that you would never truly awaken to their game. When you finally moved with the cold calculation of someone who had been quietly preparing while appearing completely unaware, there was nothing left for them except to watch everything they built collapse under the weight of their own contradictions, leaving you standing in the clear light of truth. They can no longer obscure Machiavelli did not write his wisdom for tyrants, and Villeneuve wrote it for those who refused to be destroyed by them. Today, you have completed a transformation that separates true strategists from permanent victims. You learn to observe without emotion, stripping away charm to see cold calculation. You wore the mask of compliance not from fear, but from strategic intelligence, gathering evidence while they grew dangerously overconfident. You reversed their own weapons against them, turning flattery into confession and ambiguity into documented contradiction. Finally, you dismantled their power with surgical precision, never raising your voice, never revealing your hand until their entire architecture collapsed under the weight of their own contradictions. You became strategically dangerous while remaining outwardly calm, most lethal combination in human conflict. The manipulator chose you believing you were manageable and permanently unaware, but that single miscalculation became their fatal mistake and your greatest advantage. In a world full of hidden puppeteers, you stopped being the puppet and proved Machiavelli's timeless truth. The most absolute victories are those where the enemy defeats themselves, leaving you standing untouchable in the clear light of justice that truly lasts.